Okay, let's have this conversation. I don't know how long this conversation is going to be. It may be long, it may be short. I don't know. But there is a trend, at least on my algorithm that I've been seeing on social media from Christians. So you have Christians and then you also have like former Christians. And then you have, atheists. It's everyone in between. And anybody who has an opinion on it around this conversation of purity, specifically in the church, right? Saving yourself until marriage, things of that nature. I don't know how this came about, but this stumbled across my social media feed, and I don't know who this is. This is my first time hearing him teach. I guess he's of Bethel Reading, so I guess this is a segment of Bethel Church or Reading, might be in Reading, California. I'm not sure. So I think this is a segment of Bethel Church. And he says that he has hundreds of emails from young women. It's going to get a little graphic. But he has hundreds of emails of young women about their hymens being restored. I'm just going to play the video.
Thousands of people's virginity restored. I have hundreds of emails about girls' hymens being restored. Hundreds.
So that was my pastor.
Let me play that back one more time. And I think this girl, just for complete context, I believe she's deconstructing. I believe. I could be wrong. But I think that's useful information just from the standpoint of understanding the context of her perspective. And I'm not saying that to minimize the insanity of what he just said. I'm just saying that so you have more context as she gives her reaction. Okay.
Thousands of people's virginity restored. I have hundreds of emails about girls' hymens being restored. Hundreds.
So that was my pastor. And if you've wondered why I make my purity culture videos, this is my origin story.
I could be wrong. Maybe she's not deconstructing. I could be wrong.
Joined his culty church when I was 18, and he has an entire ministry called Moral Revolution. So he was one of the teachers at our ministry school, and during relationship week, where they talked about marriage and dating and all of that, he had us all close our eyes and pray for us to be restored. Because, you want the blood covenant. Like, marriage isn't real unless you have the blood, So if you had previously sinned, he would pray that your body would be restored, and he would brag about hundreds of women being restored so that they could bleed for their husbands. So there I was at 18 years old, like, Jesus, bring the blood. It didn't happen, but supposedly it's happened to hundreds of people whose husbands do not know what they're doing. And if you're wondering, this is the same Chris Felton that is not warning people about the con artist John Bulls. So brownie points all around.
Somebody in the comments, by the name of Carl, he asked the question, who's confirming this information? Who's checking? Who's confirming? I also saw somebody in the chat asking the question as to why he's getting these emails.
I married a psychopath who...
Well, hold on. That's part 2. I also got I saw a comment. Somebody said, why is he getting these emails? Why is he teaching this theology that if you don't bleed for your husband, then your marriage is not confirmed by God? I'm not necessarily sure where he got that from. Maybe somebody in the chat can help me kind of understand where he may have, grabbed that from. It's quite disturbing. The graphic detail is quite disturbing. The need to share this information is quite disturbing. And it's actually very sad from the other side also. If that is in fact true, that he has hundreds of emails from these young women, it's a very uncomfortable topic. Now, I'm not one of those people who believe that God doesn't do miracles today. I'm not one of those people. I 100% believe that God still does miracles today. I just don't necessarily believe that this is true, nor do I feel like this is the heart of God. And let me elaborate, because I don't want to. Let me elaborate. Do I think that it's the right thing to do from a spiritual standpoint, from a biblical standpoint, to wait until marriage? Absolutely. I think you should absolutely wait until marriage. And I think that if you are willing to crucify your flesh, and I think if you are willing to suppress and kill those desires out of obedience for God, because you want to have a marriage that is pure in that way, and you want to share that with your husband, with your wife, you want to share that and have children and be fruitful in that way, I think that's beautiful. I think that's beneficial. But just in the world that we live in, that's becoming increasingly more difficult. And I'm not making excuses for it. I'm just saying the fact of the matter is there's so much more temptation today than there's ever been. And it comes in so many different ways and shapes and forms. I'm not saying it's new. It's not new, because the devil cannot do anything new. The devil is a con artist. He cannot do anything new. But there's new forms of technology to deliver these temptation. For myself, for example, I didn't wait until I was married. And I wasn't always a Christian. And I don't want to use that as like, an excuse to defend my wicked behavior. But that's just the fact is, I wasn't always a Christian, but I didn't wait until marriage. And I wish I would have. I really wish I would have. And this is the same thing that me and my wife talked about, is like, I wish we would have. Now, granted, as I said, I was doing stuff that I shouldn't have been doing as a freshman in high school, trying to fit in with people, trying to get, people to like me and trying to be cool and stuff like that, because other people were doing it. So I was doing it to satisfy the world as opposed to satisfying God. But when it comes to this conversation about like restoring, I think, everything has consequences. I think God can absolutely restore any situation. I think God can restore you in any situation. I think God can heal you physically. I think God can heal you emotionally. I think God can heal you spiritually. I think God can heal you across the board, right? But at the same time, there is still real consequences that we have to deal with as a result of our own decision making, as a result of our own sin that we chose to indulge in. There's real consequences, right? So when it comes to this whole conversation about physically restoring the hymen, I'm not on board with that. I'm not on board with that. I just, I'm trying not to be blasphemous, but that just sounds absolutely perverted. It sounds perverted, but at the same time, I'm trying not to be blasphemous, because, like, as I said, I know God can heal, but that just sounds blasphemous. That sounds perverted. That sounds manipulative, because it almost sounds like, well, if God did this for this young lady and God didn't do it for you, well, then that means that you're not good enough, or you don't have enough faith, or, XYZ. It just sounds crazy and it sounds culty. And I don't rock with that. I don't. I don't know. I don't know. It just, that makes me feel very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at that. She has some other allegations. And here's the thing. She has some other allegations. This is why I said, I don't know if I want to get into this, because I don't want to start a conversation and then have to end the conversation without, fully expressing my thoughts on this conversation. But when it comes to these types of allegations, I got to do a little bit of due diligence. You know what I mean? Because we live in a world where, I'm not saying that she's lying or nothing like that. And this, I'm talking about this video. So we haven't seen this video. I'm not saying she's lying or nothing like that, but I'm just saying, these church people be suing. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's crazy. So I got to do a little bit of due diligence before we get into this conversation. But let this be the precursor for the conversation that we will have in the future about these allegations. Okay? I'm going to leave it at that.